time to take a deep breath, a little deeper, and settle in with your host, Jenessee, starting right now on the Wellness Hour on KRMA Radio.
Good morning and happy Friday, everybody. It is your host, Jenessee, and I welcome you to our 25th episode of KRMA Radio's Wellness Hour. So I'm giving myself a round of applause. Yay! Hey, you're the private special guest. No noises yet. So in studio with me, I have a curriculum. Is it Vitale? Curriculum Vitale, I think, for this special guest that is in studio with me. But I'm gonna see if I can just ad lib and put you into a beautiful kind of encapsulated, I don't know, I want to try and see if I can just give this to the people out there that are waiting for you to understand who you are. Okay, so the person in studio with me graduated from UCSD. I'm not going to say the year because in honesty, I don't know what year. And for those of you who didn't grow up in Southern California, that's the University of San Diego. No, sorry. Don't say it. University of California at San Diego. That makes a difference. Was that the one on Jenessee Street? Exit? It was right there. Hey, quiet. I get head nods, yes and no here. So, I mean, back then it was basically destined and meant to be that we'd be sitting here right now because this person studied right off of Jenessee Street and learned everything, started to create his passion for life around being so close to Jenessee. So let's just go in another level deeper here. This person is, I'll give it, has the doctor in front of his last name. He is a doctor, which means he has gotten to the top of his educational level as far as he can go in education. Basically, he's an educator here in Ohio and moved in 2007 from California to Ohio to follow that beautiful Jenessee that he was so attracted to and start a life here. This is my husband, Dr. Jonathan Roy, in studio with us. Welcome. You can talk now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's fun to be here. I've seen this a lot and I've heard it a lot, obviously, but to be here is pretty exciting.
It's quite unique, right?
Very much so.
You get to partake in your wife, the love of your life. You get to partake in your wife's creative endeavors, right?
It's true, but to set this record straight, to be fair, you did take the dog with you when you came to Ohio.
Wait,
so
what did I say
that I followed you, but you took the dog too, so I had to.
You had to save the dog.
Was okay.
Okay, saving the dog. Got it. Check. So you didn't just come for me, you came for the dog.
You were a side bonus.
Who actually is at home listening because we are streaming this live on the laptop so that the dog...
I'm sure he's paying close attention to what we're saying.
Very close attention. Through ear infection and all. All right, he is a Cocker Spaniel. What are you going to do? So I'd like to introduce Dr. Jonathan Roy. He is a public educator here in Ohio, and this is what he I think, growing up, as far as I know, you jump in anytime and correct me, but it was either lawyer, or do I say attorney?
Lawyer is probably okay.
Lawyer, cop, or educator.
Yep.
So he was always going to be fighting the good fight for the state on some level.
One level or another.
And we won't go in depth about each of those and what led him. Well, we will, about what led you to education. But when I met you, you were teaching in Southern California at Tustin High School.
Yes.
Yeah.
Teaching and coaching water polo.
And also something you partook in at UCSD.
Yep.
You did water polo.
Did play water polo at UCSD.
Mm-hmm. And so this created kind of the background of who you are. So tell us a little bit about what you do in education, what you got your doctorate in, because I can never remember that 12-word whatever you wrote that paper on.
So I grew up in Southern California and went to school there, and then had the fortune of meeting my lovely wife here.
Jenessee, just in case you guys aren't tracking, that's Jenessee.
And so we decided to move to Ohio, and we were very excited about that. We've loved every moment since then. And I gravitated towards education because I just like working with people. I like working with
young people.
With young people, well, people in general, because I work with teachers and other educators as well. So it's
but you
various
have
levels
always
of people,
had a passion for the children.
Yeah, I do enjoy teaching and coaching and interacting with them on that level because you just have such an impact. And with teaching, it's important to understand too is there's a delayed gratification component to it because you don't really see the fruits of your labor right away. It's something that even the kids will come back 5 years later, 7 years later and say, I didn't understand this when you were telling it to me, but then now it makes sense. And now I really am grateful for the things that you said.
Which we just had an experience with. We were just invited to one of your kids' weddings. And he ended up coaching with you after graduating.
He did, and then he came up to me. So we were at a friend's wedding, and this was a person that I had coached when I first moved to Ohio. And he came back and was just kind of pulled me aside and said, hey, I just want to let you know that you had a really profound impact on my life, and I got into teaching because of you. And he currently teaches with special ed kids, and he's just a great guy. And so it was again one of those rewarding moments that you don't really get all the time. So it was nice.
And you hope that you're influencing and making an impact, but when it actually comes to fruition in your reality, that you get that validation.
You always say all the time, it's nice to have that validation of what you know, and you kind of know inside that you're making a difference, but it's nice to hear it.
And so would you say that's a majority the reason why educators get into education, or is it because the summers they have off, or is it both?
I think that's a bonus. That's a recharge period that I think a lot of teachers need. So it definitely doesn't hurt to have that time off. But again, teachers also working a lot during the summer as well, getting more education and going to workshops. And I go to different workshops and I'm doing, taking classes and stuff like that. So
here's something cool you guys need to know about Dr. Roy is he just recently, part of his career path is moving into, we'll see, but consulting and doing things for the AP board. And if you don't know about AP testing, if you don't have kids that are in high school yet, it's an advanced placement, right?
So
and
it gives through the College Board, it's the organization that runs the SAT and the ACT, and they do the AP classes and stuff like that. So I do some consulting work with them, and I'm an AP reader and grader. And
give a quick sentence because it's crazy what you guys have to do during the summer.
We're the ones who go after all the AP tests are taken. So for U.S. history, which is my primary one that I teach, we have to grade 500,000 tests from all over the world. So we all travel. So about 1,200 teachers travel down to Florida, is where it's been the last couple of years.
1,200 just for
1,200 teachers just for history.
And they do this all over for all the different classes.
So all the classes that we offer. And
so you're one slice of this high school
one
pie.
Small piece of the pie. Though we are, I think, the second largest test given by the College Board outside the ACT and SAT. And we sit in a big conference center, Tampa Bay Convention Center, and we sit there and we read essays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for 7 days straight. So this is how the sausage is made behind the scenes there.
Gross, by the way.
Sorry.
That's a really gross visual for a lot of people. And so it's mind-boggling work. He loves it the first 3 days, and then the last 2 days of grading, his eyeballs are falling out.
It does start to wear on you, that's for sure.
Detached retina syndrome starts to happen.
I don't think that's a real thing.
They claim it in football all the time. Detached retina?
I don't think it's a syndrome, though. It's an actual
physical
affliction where, you actually have a physically detached retina.
I'm sure energetically it imprints on the emotional level.
Okay, let's go with that.
All right. So really interesting. So for our audience, and one of the things that, as I would not tell you what we were going to talk about today, he's a very good sport here on so many levels. Last night it started happening where he started questioning me, asking, well, what are we going to talk about tomorrow? Being somebody who likes to be prepared.
I do like to prepare.
And of course, with his doctor label, there's a better word for that. Your doctor, what label?
Sure.
I can call you.
Okay.
Yeah. The doctor lettering before your name. He does like to know his stuff, right? He likes to be at the top of his game. And so when he was asking me last night what we were going to talk about, I said, good luck. And even if we plan, it's going to just rabbit hole into multiple.
Spin off those rails anyway. So.
Yeah, fractal, dimensional, kind of journeys we're going to be taking today. So over the last 2 weeks with the Karma listening audience on the Wellness Hour here, we've been talking about what's been shifting and transitioning, and you have listened many times, so you know the levels, and you know me. So you know what we talk about at home. We talk about much more in depth all of this than even the Karma listeners get. And so what I wanted to kind of probe further into, because it's the energy that's kind of surrounding everybody right now, is this dance of relationships. Oh, dun, dun, dun. And so everything energetically has been aligning for this November shift that everybody worldwide is going to be kind of stepping into. And like we always talk about, it depends on where you are on the mountaintop as far as where you're going to get affected, right? So if you're in the seeking aspect of consciousness, then you are going to want to see from that perspective. So everything that comes into my reality, I see it through the lens of being more conscious, right?
Yeah, your perspective is everything to you.
Yes.
Your perception is your reality.
Beautiful. Exactly. And so if I'm at the, and I hate saying this because we'll get into this in a minute, but if you're at the bottom of the mountain in seeking more of who you are authentically and who you are in relationship to the world and what you offer to the world, then your perspective is going to be a very singular, self-serving, and I'm already into Maslow's triangle. Ooh, we're already there. And so, sorry, sidebar for the two people in studio right now.
Sure, we'll get there.
We'll get there. And so, if you're not somebody whose first level of needs are met, what is the first level of Maslow's triangle?
That's basic survival needs.
Survival needs.
Food, water.
So if you're prime...
Things that keep you alive.
Yeah, so if your survival needs are not met in this human world, you're not at the top of the triangle able to basically be seeking out this spiritual understanding of who you are and why you're here and what your purpose is. If your basic survival needs aren't met.
Yeah, so again, the idea is that you have a hard time moving up the triangle if your basic needs aren't met. You can't...
Triangle equaling mountain here,
Yeah,
guys.
so this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from, you're not worried about making friends. So the idea
Second level is friends.
So it's self-esteem needs, love needs, as you start to move up this triangle towards a self-transcendence, self-actualization position. And it's very hard to get there if the lower level, if you're not building on your triangle, is the basic theory of psychology that they're talking about.
Yeah, so if you can't meet the needs of one plateau, you can never get to that next, what do they call it in?
Just next level of understanding, or next level of...
Yeah, there's a mountain word, a mountain climber's word for this. What is it when you get to that, where it's like a lookout? You know what? I can feel into it, but it's totally...
It'll pop into our head in about 6 minutes.
Exactly. So...
Plateau?
The plateau, sure.
Let's go with that.
Might be. So basically what this is saying, and Dr. Roy teaches AP psychology. And so this is where we get to have a lot of fun in our home life, because I come from a very metaphysical, spiritual base, and Dr. Roy has a very left brain, cognitive approach to it. And throughout our journey together, which is what I wanted to tap into, throughout our journey together, we have gotten to grow and meet our own needs as we've scaled that mountain.
I think we're kind of like a Venn diagram. If you're familiar with what a Venn diagram is,
I am. Yes.
So
but
maybe
you
so
explain
think
it
of
just
two
a little
circles.
bit.
So two circles, and there's an overlapping middle part.
Here's
I
the
think when
yin and yang for Papa.
I think when we first got together, our overlapping circles didn't overlap that much, and I think
it was basic human instinct is what got us together.
The free drinks you got at the bar I was working at.
Free drinks. We were a couple that met at a bar.
So I think that over time, like with any couple that spends enough time together, your circles begin to overlap more and more. So that Venn diagram starts to merge together more and more. Now we still have our individual components to us, but I think the overlapping circles have gotten bigger, which is a good thing.
It's a great thing.
Yes.
Yes. And so back to the beginning of this. So right now, in energetic terms, what a lot of people are shifting into, and again, this all depends on your level of perspective, where you're choosing to view from right now. Again, if your basic survival needs are not met, if you're wondering where your next paycheck is going to go, how you're going to support and feed your family, you're not somebody who is able at that human functioning level to basically be sitting and spending time questioning your purpose in life and how you can fulfill not only yourself but all the people that surround you, right? At that
your
kind
spiritual
of
needs are kind of
exactly.
get pushed to the side as you're worrying about your human basic needs
and feeding
Sure.
your child or something.
Yeah.
And so depending on where you are in life, it is going to dictate how you are understanding right now what we've talked about over the past 2 weeks, which is this astrology concept that's been coming through, that we are going through as humanity this huge shift, and how you're going to feel that shift is going to be determined by where you are in your perspective, where you're standing on the mountain. So here, this huge shift is all about actually stepping into playing this game of life more fully.
So I guess the question then becomes, how do you help people who maybe they can't change that part of their life, or they're always going to worry about where their next paycheck comes from. They're always going to worry about feeding their children. That's just a part of their life. It's who those people still try to move up that triangle like we were talking about, even though those other things aren't ever going to really change. Like, I think that's the really important question that we have to try to help people to figure out.
Yeah.
So you got an answer on that one?
Well, I mean, I can, but that would take probably the next 3 hours. I can give you my...
Condense it down into a 30-second answer.
Okay, so the interesting thing that I immediately get pulled to is this crisis moment. So working with Dr. Tatiana Irving, I learned about her story, and she was at this basic survival instinct. She was escaping a very horrible relationship that was, I believe it was abusive on some level, and she had children, and she ended up having to live in a car and survive, right? Mm-hmm. And how do you do this? This is so many people's story out there. We get triggered in what, in spiritual terms, I would call the crisis moment, the dark night of the soul. And anybody who is standing at the top of the mountain can reflect and look back at what that crisis moment was for them.
So how do people handle that crisis moment? Like when that comes? Well,
so this is it. So are you living the story? And this is the hard part, because those who aren't seeking aren't open to kind of getting, I feel like it's this drowning component of reality, right? Yeah. Where when you're trying, and we'll go to a water polo analogy for you, when you're just trying to tread water and keep your head afloat, all you're trying to do is tread water. There's nothing outside of what you can grasp and right that is going to save you, right? Unless like a life raft is thrown to you and you actually have something to hold on to. And that I think, and I might be wrong here, but I'm trying to reflect back on Tatiana's story. And for her, I think she was given a book by somebody that basically gave her that life raft, that one pearl of wisdom that felt so connected to her authentic truth inside that she felt she could get through it. Yeah. And so she started doing severe intention setting that got her out of that dark space. And it's very easy in self-reflective moments to say, this is where I was and this is what helped me. But once you're in it, and the thing is, it's a pattern, it's a willingness to change a situation. And this is what metaphysical people call this unconscious, right? Because we all know there's no such thing as unconscious. We're all conscious, or we would be flatlined somewhere in a hospital, right? But using these terms conscious and unconscious, this is what happens when you're basically just running the hamster wheel of life and only accepting the physical reality that surrounds you. That's all. There's no life raft to grab onto. So let's
I think that's an important part that you just said, is you use the word accepting, and the idea of accepting a situation is easy at times for some people, because change is hard, change is difficult, change is scary, and it takes a lot of understanding of your own situation and self-recognition of in that moment of saying, you know what, I'm always going to worry about money, I'm always going to worry about these things, yet I can still do something else. This situation doesn't define who I am. I can be in this situation where I am worried about this stuff, but yet I still feel the pull to improve. And once you start to kind of go down that road and you start to do those things, then it becomes a little bit easier. And then maybe there is some moment where you grab onto somebody or something, like a book,
triumphant
like
moment.
like that. There is some pivotal moment where you're going to say, hey, look, I need to do something a little bit different about this. I can't completely change my physical life, but I can alter my spiritual life. And doing that, I think, is hard for some people. But once they do find some avenue to do that, then I think it does become a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to put this into like 3 words, but it's the change component, and it's like, unless you're willing to change your circumstances.
Sure, change only occurs with willing acceptance. Like, you have to buy into it. If there's no buy-in, then change is irrelevant. It doesn't matter because you're not going to change. So, and this was something that I wrote a lot about, when I was doing a lot of my research and stuff, is understanding of why teachers refuse to change. And a lot of it is autonomy in our world. Like, we believe our classroom is our world, and who are you to come in and tell me that I should do something different?
Stop, because don't stop. Okay, he's looking at his phone right now. Flip your phone upside down. Papa, stop texting. You are distracting. You are so distracting right now. I will monitor the Papa text. Okay. Okay. So you just nail on head hit something that we can use in every aspect of civilization here. The autonomy of my classroom. I am the teacher. This is my world. You cut me off.
I was about to make that point, but go ahead, you make it now.
Oh, sorry.
Steal my point.
No, go for it. Let's see.
That autonomy, like for teachers, autonomy is the classroom. But I think as individuals, we have autonomy over some component of our life. And that's where I think people really want to hang on to that. And if that can be respected and that can be kind of grown and fostered, then I think that people are more willing to
I'm not
change.
Understanding how you explain that. So, because you say...
Is that what you were going to say? Or?
No, well, yeah, I mean, okay. I was going to make that point too, but you're saying... if you kept using that, so can you give me like an explanation? If they can master that, so everybody has some autonomy or control over everybody's the king of their own domain, right?
Yeah.
So figuring out what that is.
Yeah, I think it's the relinquishing of that, of freedom, of the accepting of the unknown, accepting that fear and understanding that, hey, I don't know what's around the corner. I don't know what's going to happen if I go down this hole. I don't know what's going to happen if I give myself over to,
trust. Complete blind trust that I can be better than whatever my situation is.
Or, again, just not understanding what's next. That's very scary for some people, especially if you're already in a situation that's scary and you're already kind of, to use some sort of little bad analogy here, you're already on thin ice with life. You kind of already, at a very precarious situation.
I'm going right to like a wife that's being abused, physically abused. It's the devil, with kids, right? I rather take the next punch. It's like the devil, This is a huge you're giving me eyeballs.
Well, because that's a really extreme example that but yeah.
But I'm trying to go back to that crisis moment, the person who's trying to just live, and I'm going back to the step 1 on Maslow's triangle. Like, if you are not able to feel secure and safe in your environment, which to me it's drugs, it's abuse, it's
whatever it is, it's
physical needs.
One person's abuse is another person's drug abuse, and another person's alcoholism is another person's.
It's how we're controlling. Yeah, it's the thing that's keeping us inside of a pattern that we're not changing.
And I think the point you're trying to make is the devil, is like, I don't know what's next around me. Like, this is what I know. I can live through this, and I know that. But if I were to accept the fact that I'm alcoholic, accept the fact that I'm a drug abuser, accept the fact that I'm in an abusive relationship. Like, okay, well, what's next? I don't know. And the I don't know is what really scares people. And that's what a lot of people resist change, because they don't know. And they're scared to go down that road. Because as human beings, we inherently like to know what's going on. We inherently like to know what's next. And in order to give that over is very hard for a lot of people. And a lot of times people don't know what to do. And that's another thing too. And I think this is why one of the things that you're doing and you've worked on a lot is really good, is that trying to give people some direction and a person that they can turn to and say, hey, how does this happen, or what's the next step in this? And you can kind of give some advice. And I know you hate telling people what to do or this is what you should do. You kind of just try to guide them as best they can so they can find their own path. But sometimes people just need a little encouragement. They just need to be, shoved out of the nest a little bit.
Shoved out of the nest. It's the validation. So at the next level in Maslow's triangle is friendship. So once you have basic needs and survival needs met, or vice versa, in our context of what we're talking about, is if you choose to not accept the pattern you're in, which is the crisis moment, and say, okay, I'm ready to make a change, even though I have no clue what it is. So the next level of Maslow's triangle is.
Yes, you start to get into friendship needs, self-esteem needs, love needs, things like that.
And so that's where the point is, that's the validation factor. If you're willing to step out of a pattern, the next level you get tested with.
Yeah, and I think at this point in time, it's very hard to do this alone. Like, you have to have support from somebody, some person, something. It's very difficult. Human beings, we're generally social people. We need to have some sort of human interaction. We have to have some either, spiritual connection, physical connection, mental connection, whatever it is. So in order to do this completely independently by yourself, it's really difficult to do for pretty much anybody to go through this alone. So
to go through what?
To go through any sort of transformation and altering life change that you're really trying to make, any sort of monumental change in your life where you're making some recognition. Like you said, off that crisis moment, you're saying, okay, I need to change this. It's tough to do that by yourself. You need some support, love, validation, whatever you want to call it. I think everybody needs a little bit of that.
And so interesting, because in this new energy and what we've been talking about for the past 2 weeks, stepping into this November as serious joy, Christopher puts it, this Game of Thrones that we're all going to kind of get thrown into. And I know you don't have a reference for that, but just think medieval times. Everybody wanting their Risk, the game Risk. Right? Now we're talking. And so in this energy shift, we're all going to get triggered. Wherever you are on the mountain, whatever crisis moment you're in, if you're at the bottom of the mountain and it's saying, hey, I'm going to pull the rug out from under you yet again and see if you actually take charge of releasing these old paradigms, these old patterns, and start to open up to there could be something greater than what you're currently experiencing. Or for the person standing on the top of the mountain who has been through their self-actualizing, internally seeking, who am I, what's my purpose? Same thing, but it's all right now being triggered through our relationships. And in energetic terms, this is all a reflection kind of mentality. Everything that's surrounding you is a reflection of everything that's internally going through you. Mirror.
Okay.
And so in this, really interesting, because one of the things that a lot of people who are seeking their next level of growth, one of the things that we hear a lot in metaphysical terms is the relationships, and specifically our one-on-one partnered relationships. And so this becomes a point of contention where people say, if I change so drastically, what's going to happen? And that fear of my partner not accepting me or losing a partner, or I no longer resonate with that partner because they haven't also shifted. And we went through this. And so that's kind of what I'm starting the camera. That's kind of one of the things I wanted to bring up, because I think so many people question, and there's two answers. When you shift yourself and completely change who you are and how you perceive this world, you either choose to stay in relationships, or you choose to stay and grow together in relationships, or you choose to basically pack your bags and leave. And so this is what happens. And I think this is a big component. And we're talking partnership because I have my husband here in the studio with me, but this also translates to a boss and a coworker. If I shift myself completely in how I think, I might leave my job. With friends, if I change how I interact and what my expectations over people are, still being snobby and gossipy and whatever, and not aligning to this new energy I want to align to, I'm going to lose friends. And how is that going to affect everything? And so this is, to me, a big reason. And if in Maslow's triangle, if when we kind of move through our own crisis moment in those first level survival needs, and we now get into this friendship category and have to start to figure out who am I, and then how do I connect to people in the world, it's a really scary...
Yeah, and I think that's the root of all of these things is fear. It's the fear of, can I do this? It's the fear of, what am I going to do when this happens? And the fear of, how are people going to react to me when this happens? And I think that's something that really hinders a lot of people from taking this journey because they don't know what to do. And it is something that you kind of just touched on, that you and I went through this, and it was not always easy, and there was disagreements, and there was, just kind of in our own relationship that we had to work through, and different things that I had to accept about you and you had to accept about me. And
the Venn diagram before the white circle and the black circle came together and made a rainbow circle.
I don't think that's how color works, but okay. But yeah, I think that's something that is really hard, and you've kind of expressed this, that you've had
I've
friends
written books on this, guys,
who've gone through this, and relationships have ended. Because, and I've said this to you before, it's extremely difficult to be the one who's not necessarily changing. And I've said this to you a lot, is that you are not the same person that I married.
Yeah. So this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted you to tell people. Well, because I feel like anybody who's stuck with me through 25 episodes is probably the person who is the spiritual seeker trying to have validation over what they're going through and all the changes they're making to shift themselves into a better version. I shouldn't say that. That's so wrong. Not a better version of yourself, but a more aligned. You feel like you're here living your purpose instead of just being a part of something that doesn't feel purposeful. Yeah. And so the reason why I wanted, or one of the things I wanted you to talk about, especially with the history of the show now, is, making the changes I had to, at some level within myself, as I was making these drastic changes, I had to say, I'm okay staying with my husband, or I'm okay leaving. I had to be okay with both of those things because I was so drastically shifting into something different than you had married.
Yeah. Yeah. And
we met in a bar, guys. Let's just start there. We met in a bar. So,
and I think what people have to understand too is that different isn't always bad. Like, different doesn't mean negative. So, and that was something that I had to go through as well, saying, yes, she is changing. She's a different person. She's not exactly the same person that I, fell in love with, but doesn't mean that I can't love her as much or more now and love this new person. And so I think that's hard for a lot of people because, again, change is difficult in any avenue of life, and especially on something as meaningful as a marriage relationship. And this is why some people can't go through that.
Well, in using the mirror technique, so if I'm shifting so drastically, it also has to make you take a deep look at yourself.
Scary for the other person as well. So,
because it's always an individualized path, even though what we learn is through the eyes of another, it's always about the self here. And so, even because everything you just said was, I had to decide this based off of how she was changing, which, yes, but on a spiritual level, that meant you were choosing also to partner with me and stay with me during those drastic chameleon-style changes.
And I think, too, though, you had to go through a period of learning where you said, hey, I'm going, because I think we had this conversation multiple times where I said, it's great that you're going through this change. Don't project that onto me. So, and that was something that I think took you a while to kind of understand as well, because you were like, hey, I'm doing these changes. Why aren't you changing? And then I could tell that you were getting frustrated with me at a lot of times through choices that I was making that you didn't agree with or whatever it was.
Yeah, so specifically, let's break this down and give a contextual clue here to what was. No, what? Oh, so what happened here for us was this constant state of I was shifting myself and like going into meditation or taking spiritual trips, and I really wanted my partner to be in that energy and mode and connect with me in that same way, and when I would then attach to an expectation I had over him and how he could be in that same, I'd say, vibration, right? Where we were resonating, we were in the same energy together. And I would extend that. I'd like go fishing. I'd like cast that line out, hoping that he'd bite, and he wouldn't. And I'd have so many internal expectations going on over the second level of Maslow's triangle, how my relationships outside of myself would then be aligned to me because I was shifting. So why wouldn't they shift? And so this, I think, is the biggest component of this, of working together as a Venn diagram that starts as two circles that overlap a little bit and then want to be complete.
Yeah, and I think over the course of a relationship, as it evolves, that Venn diagram is going to overlap a lot more at certain times, and it's going to kind of fall apart at other times. So I think the goal of any relationship is to kind of make sure that your circles are always touching. on some level.
They say that at night, if you go to sleep and a part of your body isn't touching, that it's a bad sign.
So that's where.
By the way, we don't touch anymore. Not a bad sign. I just said that.
It's because you work too late.
I do, yeah. Anyways, sidebar.
Forgot where I was going.
Oh, but so the circles need to touch.
Yeah, so the circles have to touch, and you have to find those moments where.
But if I don't want your circle to touch me, what if I don't want your circle to touch me?
Too bad. This is the way it goes. But you have to find some avenue to connect. You have to find some way to connect with your partner, and I think that you got to be okay with the idea that you're not maybe going to connect on everything. And this is something that I had to learn.
We both had to learn.
Jenessee had to learn.
Yeah.
Or I was going to get to you. Don't worry.
Both.
That both people have to learn that. She has to learn that she can't project that onto me, and it's okay if I don't change, and then she has to learn, or I have to accept the fact that she is going to change. And then you have to then make a decision and both people are involved in this decision. She decides, is this person that's not changing somebody I want to stay with and can be with? And then I would have to decide, or the other person would decide that, am I going to stay with this person who is changing dramatically and is not the same person? And that's where I think it becomes very scary in intimate personal relationships like marriages. So
and it took a while. So here's the really interesting fact.
It doesn't happen over the weekend.
Well, yeah, and here's the interesting fact, because this started when I started writing my book in 2013, 13. Woo. In 2013, when I wrote my first book and was doing all of this deep dive self-actualizing process that I was going through, and poor thing, it didn't happen until week 7, which is crown chakra week, because I did my own self-actualization process through each of the chakras week by week. And so when I got to crown chakra, it was finally this message of detached acceptance, because everything I was shifting in myself, I looked at Johnny and I went, okay, well, he's like a reflection of the things I'm trying to shift, and yet he's not shifting. And so I would constantly analyze myself. We'll get there.
I was going to say, I represented the antithesis of what you wanted.
Exactly. So everything I was shifting, he was like the barometer of like the density that I was trying to shift past. But it was helping me to learn more about myself through him being himself and staying grounded in who he was. I could then really take a deep dive at myself and go, whoa, this is changing. Whoa, this is changing. So my external reality was reflecting exactly how drastically I was changing.
So do you think that a lot of going through this, do you think this is something that is not necessarily at the root of a bunch of issues in relationships, but it is a common thing that I think that people are going through? Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you can see this in Hollywood so much that two people come together because of their projections of what they want to be viewed as. And then as they get in a relationship, every projection and expectation of not only who you projected yourself to be, but then your expectation of a partner and what they are, then you see where that Venn diagram isn't overlapping. And then that's when you have to start doing the self work, and every time you bounce something off the opposite in your life, it comes back and goes, whoa, that was totally different. Whoa, that was totally different.
So I guess for us in our relationship and in relation to your listeners, right? You would probably say the majority of your listeners are the ones that are changing. They're the ones that are going through these metaphysical shifts and these spiritual alignments.
They're butterflies.
Okay. So what would be your advice to them to accept a partner maybe who's not changing, or maybe not changing as quickly, or not meeting those expectations?
Yes, thank you. So at level 7, when I was writing this book and I got to week 7, the one thing that you hated that I would say that was the big aha moment for me in acceptance.
Detached acceptance.
Detached acceptance, yeah. And I looked at you one day and through deep meditation and connection to my own higher guidance, I received this understanding that you have to have detached acceptance. And it took you a while to be in vibration with that, because you would hear that and you hear detached and you're going, wait a minute, like a relationship. Because again, I had battered him for 6 weeks. Like, how dare you be this way? How dare you not want to support me in this? How dare you not want to meditate? How dare you not, right? Yes. And so I'm making you look so good to the listeners right now. I was a beast. And so at level 7, I get this awareness that, oh my gosh, I I have learned so much about myself, and because I have shifted into more alignment with myself, I cannot expect, it would be so wrong to rob somebody of their journey of connecting to their authentic self and being and living and expressing their authentic self, because that's exactly what I had just discovered about myself, that I had been living, being, and expressing something that wasn't authentic to me because I was trying to whatever reflect or project a certain who knows what. And so I had discovered my authenticity, and so every guidance I was getting was, you have to have detached acceptance over another human's path. Like, you cannot have any expectation over who they should be, what they should look like, what their path should entail. You have to detach completely from any expectation over who they should be, because how are you? Like, who are you?
You can't force authenticity on somebody else.
We're all our own God beings, right? We're all these creator beings that get to decide who we want to be. So how could I ever expect you to be something?
And I think what's important to understand too is if you can't do that, then the other partner is going to try. Like, I'm going to try to shift. I'm going to try to change, but I'm not doing it for my own internal benefit, doing it for an external benefit of pleasing my partner. And that's just disingenuous to you as a whole,
now
and
you're
the relationship
projecting,
as a whole. And it just more and more conflict, because there's nothing genuine about what the action is.
So the goal here is to find authenticity through both parties, so that you can then draw that Venn diagram and see.
So you're liking that analogy now, aren't you?
I like the fact that I'm seeing the middle part as a rainbow and the yin and the yang that are your father-in-law has
Black
requested.
and white makes rainbow.
I mean, in certain circles it does. Okay. So with this whole component, because when we went through this, it was really interesting. As soon as I got that awareness at week 7, after I tried to change him and had expectations over him, as I got the awareness that he's an individual, because I had completed my journey, first round, there's 3 of these, as I completed this first physical level journey, I then could look at him and go, oh my gosh, how beautiful that you,
thank you.
that you get to decide who you want to be, how you want to express yourself, and I every day get to make a choice to be a part of that or not be a part of that. And there's been days after that, 2013.
So you make that choice every day?
I sit in my bedroom in my robe making that choice over morning coffee. I sit with the pendulum and I'm like, is today the day? Divine,
wow.
Is today the day?
I didn't realize I was teetering on the edge like that.
Every day. Remember that thin ice analogy used earlier? A little thinner. Yeah. So every day, baby. But look at the beauty of that, too. Your glass is half empty right now, Dr. Roy. Glass is half full means every single day I choose to be a better part of this relationship.
You stuck it out.
Papa, do the numbers. What's 2018 minus 2013 times the seconds of the day? I want to see how many seconds I've chosen to be a part of this. So the really interesting thing to me, though, as somebody who went through it, changing myself so drastically and then accepting that I can be a partner to this person who is not now reflecting me. He's staying authentic to him. I am being completely authentic to me, and we get to be our own individual selves. Yet in that, so I had completely released any expectation that you would ever take a Kripalu spiritual trip with me, that you would ever want to go watch the sunrise. I mean, who am I kidding? I'm not going to get up to watch the sunrise. That's more you than me. But anyways, that we're going to try and do these very ooey gooey, what people would call twin flame activities, where I am your breath and you are my breath, and we can go experience. I released all expectation over you being that person, and realized that it was better that we be these authentic representations of ourselves. So I completely detached, which is interesting. And this happened in 2013. And there were little things, like any good spiritual journey does. There were little crisis moments that happened after that showed me where I still did hold expectation. There'd be little flares for me, and probably little flares for him, where I challenged him. Are you going to be able to stay authentic to yourself and what you need right now? Because I had expectations come up. Yeah. So there are little things that continue to tweak that process. But the really interesting thing to me is probably I think it was at the beginning, either at the end of last school year, when we were on the screened-in porch. Do you remember this? Or the beginning of this school year, And
let's just assume that I do. Keep talking. It'll come to me in a second.
2 years. It was maybe like most would be 2 years ago. We're sitting on our screened-in porch having a very interesting talk. And one of the things that I realized, being the person who really liked to dive deep into the spiritual realms in a conversation, and he liked to play the, for lack of a better term, devil's advocate, and try and get me to be very left brain with it and scientific about it. I witnessed you having the most intense self-awareness moment where you were putting the pieces of the puzzle together in a very self-reflective, spiritual, metaphysical way, and making these analysis over what the situation was that was happening around you. And you were using the terms that I had always used. You were having awarenesses that I had always used. But this is now 3 or 4 years later that I had completely detached from you and allowed you to just be your authentic self. And so what that meant was I was holding my vibration, you were holding your vibration, and naturally over those 3 or 4 years, you had come into a level of resonance with wanting to kind of talk. I'm not saying mine's better, but I'm saying mine's better. I stand higher on the mountain. Be a butterfly.
I'm just trying to get up there.
Get to the next summit.
Slow
Oh,
climber.
was summit the word? That's the word I was looking for. That's the mountain climber word. You said plateau. Summit.
Okay.
Getting to the next summit. And so I watched you on the porch, and it was like mind was blown. And I even told you, I was like, oh my God, you're having a self-reflective moment. And because now I'm going to go to like in cycles and goddess speak in like different levels and journey. There's always 3 journeys for the human. Humans get born with full access to their first triad. And this is the physical, the emotional, the mental. We have full, complete access. Nobody's going to sit out there in KRMA radio land and critique this, because everybody knows you have a mental field, you have an emotional field, and you have a physical body. And so we're born with access to all of these things. How good you're using them or how aware you are that they're operating to you, through you, with you, by you, is depicts the level you're kind of operating at. But these are the 3 journeys of the human, is to clear and understand yourself more fully in each of these bodies, to understand yourself emotionally. And sorry, guys, but this is what you come into needing help on, right?
Yes, I'm definitely 2 of those 3.
Well, yeah, and women, so women, it's the mental field, because we get so attached to the emotional body, and then we interpret things in a different way mentally instead of just being very logical left brain or right brain, right? We tend to muddy it. And so we all have our deficiencies here. But so physical, emotional, mental, and you take these journeys and you dive and you do a deep dive of yourself and understand who you are working through each of those things. And if you're going to choose to again remain at the first level.
I think this is probably one of the big disconnects between men and women too, is if you're looking at those 3 things, men are, I would say, probably more traditionally physical and mental, and then women are generally more emotional and mental, right? So that's where you have a connection on the mental component, but there's men generally are more physical and women are generally more emotional, and that's where the disconnect starts to happen between the 2. So it's trying to bridge that gap between those different criteria or categories as you're describing them.
Yeah. And look at all of your partnerships out there, man on man, woman on woman, man and woman, whatever. And look how we partner with the opposite role that's reflecting one person's mental, one person's emotional, or if it's too emotional, look at how those relationships are so much different. Or if it's mental and mental, like anytime you talk about a men's locker room, right? Mm-hmm. Or women, I'm being so sexist right now.
Better you than me.
Right. I know, right? I just realized that was like super, whoa. I was going to say women and...
You're going to say like Tupperware party or something?
I'm only saying this because of... No, gosh, stop it. No, I was going to say spa but that's my history. I can get away with that, right? Because I grew up in the spa industry. But like just when women are together and men are together, sure. and the dynamic, right? Mental role, emotional role, and how that engages and how that... So interesting that if you want to see too a reflection in your external reality and how aligned you are in each of these bodies, because for me I call these your different planes of awareness, or your different bodies, or your physical body, your emotional body, and your mental body. And so a man in connection to another man, you know, and how those relationships go, and basically it's a reflection kind of that mental field. And then with women, so a man with a woman or a woman with a woman, again, the external reflection of the emotional body. And interesting.
I think it is really interesting in the idea of too how much effort and energy you want to put into particular relationships, right? If you're going to connect, you know, like say guys, you know, a male relationship of friendship or whatever, you're going to connect on a very physical level, and it's super easy, right? Or women, like we're just going to have a very emotional connection, and it can be easy. But when you start to mix those, where it's like, okay, I know I'm emotionally deficient, and you are, you know, mentally deficient or something like that, then it takes a lot more work to make that relationship work. So I think people can self-reflect and self-evaluate their own relationships through their life and say, where am I not connecting with this person? Yeah. And is that the root of our issue? Yeah. You know, so, and I think that couples do this a lot, where you start to evaluate your own relationship and say, okay, we're connecting on this level, but we're not connecting on this level. How can we start to fix that, or at least recognize it? I mean, recognition is step one. You know, if you can't recognize the issue, then you can't fix it. And I think that's where if people who are going through these, you know, kind of to bring it back to the idea of this spiritual growth and awareness that couples have to go through at some point together as well. I mean, there has to be growth on both people. If they're going to work, you have to kind of do
growth on both people. Now we're talking your physical body.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. But the idea is that you have to kind of evaluate the relationship as a whole and say, okay, well, for me personally, I am, you know, you would probably agree with this, that I am which one? I'm which deficient?
You're emotional.
Yeah, I'm
for
emotional.
Sure. Oh, no, not deficient.
Yeah, I'm emotionally challenged. Right.
But interesting, because look at now your friendships, and you can see, because this is, if you go to your male friendships, you can see where you require more emotional support from a certain friend. Sure. And you don't, and you try very much to get an emotional connection with that friend, and they're now playing out the deficient role. And so you can use any of these relationships outside of you, male or female, to see, okay, well, I'm the dominant one here and they're the less, and then what's reflecting here and why, right? And maybe it's just interesting, because this is all about trusting.
And I think too, it's important to understand that even if you recognize it, doesn't mean that you have to change it. Like, I think this is something's...
No. I'm going to disagree. If you're recognizing it. If you're recognizing a pattern... Because so if you're recognizing it and it's a pattern, and the relationship is not serving you, and you question and you get charged. So this is what we use here, is charge, right?
Okay, so that's, but again, you...
Emotional, mental charge. If you leave the relationship and you're thinking about that, oh, I should have said this. Ooh, did I offend them by saying that? If you're in your mental field thinking about things, or if you're in an emotional field, they triggered you into like anger or fear.
What I was going to say is the idea that, yes, if I recognize there's something not there, and then again, like we go back to the marriage situation, am I okay with that? Can I accept that? Can I still operate in this relationship and get some things that I need in order for it to continue as a friendship or as a relationship? I don't think you have to actively work to change every single thing in your relationship.
You never try and detached acceptance. You never try and change a relationship. You use everything you're gaining.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing here.
No. Stop coloring in my circle. So you have to analyze what it is that's reflecting, how you're interpreting that on a mental level, emotional level, or is it physically hurting? And then you choose, basically, is this what I want to be in resonance with? If you're leaving every relationship, I know you're saying
that's what I said.
I'm rewording it in my fancy metaphysical words. I don't like your left-brain words. Too analytical. So anyways, because this is the takeaway, right? It's start to look at every relationship and trust that every single relationship outside of you is reflecting to you a potential physical growth. Sorry, back to your slip. Is potentially reflecting an area where there's an ability to step out of the routine, step out of the pattern, step out of the way it's always been, and shift yourself, which inevitably will then give the other person in the relationship a chance to say, ooh, this person's changed. And then they get to decide, do I still want to be a part of this person's transformation? And this is where we get into the, do I stay or do I go now, right? It's if I'm going to shift so drastically because I see a pattern we're playing, and the archetypal roles. You know, I'm playing mother, you're playing son. I'm playing the savior and you're playing the victim always, right? I mean, in our friendships, we can label most every friendship with something. Or is it that we're compatible, we fulfill each other on a very like meaningful level, right? And so if you're playing out, or if you could label somebody in a certain way, giving them that archetypal kind of name or definition, I guess, because that makes it easier. If you could understand them in the archetypes that the two of you are playing out, and then realize, ooh, I don't always want to save them. I don't always want to be the knight in shining armor to their situation.
I think most people who are going through this process probably have to go through their relationships and start to evaluate, are they meaningful or are they comfortable? And I think there's a difference between those two things. Meaningful is the idea that it's going to fulfill you somehow, some way. Comfortable means that it's just convenient and easy and you don't have to work at it. I think any real meaningful relationship is going to take some work. Yeah, we as human beings, we like comfortable relationships, even if they're bad for us, because it's what we know. So comfortability is something that I think human beings as a whole struggle with, just because it's easy. And we like to do things that are generally easy, whereas personal growth, relationship growth, marriage growth, relations with children, friends, it's hard. And it's hard work and it's uncomfortable work, and that people generally want to stay away from that. So we'll purposely choose to ignore signs. We'll purposely choose to ignore situations just because it's easier.
So we only have like 5 minutes, and I want to, because you're a teacher, I know you don't teach the grade I'm about to talk about, but it's interesting because my business partner and I just started teaching 1st through 12th grade with girl power empowerment. Whoa. Girl programming, empowerment type stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Why can't I say that right? Girl power.
Girl empowerment program.
Girl power programming.
You got power and
okay. Alliterations are hard today. And so we just started teaching young girls through yoga for mind-body connection, emotional connection. And interesting because in classical psychology, and tell me if I'm wrong, but third to 5th grade is where kids start pulling away from their parents as the number one, what would you say, number one factor in influence, and they start now playing out the roles within their peers.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because this is where you start to see bullying, and the kids are trying to take on archetypes. They're trying now to figure out, who am I with each of these roles, because they know that they come from a parental and child relationship, and they're pulling away, and now they're trying to self-identify, who am I in this role? Am I
Am I the dominant? Am I the power?
Yeah.
Am I the...
Any archetype, right? What am I going to play to get what I want out of this? And it's so interesting to see this in the developmental stage. And this is why we're doing this, is to basically give these girls, young girls at this age, a language to understand what they're going through in their physical, emotional, and mental body. So we're there to assist them as they start to try and play out these roles, which we've had to do many times so far. But
yeah, as kids move into elementary school, the number one influence on their personality starts to be their peers. I mean, that's who they spend the majority of their time with. That's who, and that's a struggle for parents. And parents really start to struggle with the idea that they have a diminishing impact on. Yeah,
they're internalizing things more. The
The
power's gone. They've lost the power.
Yeah. So I think it's really cool what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Self-promotion. I had wrote that down for him at the very end. Make sure to say
that I'm amazing.
Yes. So on that topic. So anything else you need, of course, as always, I repost all of this on YouTube if you want to see the smiling face of Dr. Roy. See the smarter version of me, the more logical, smarter version of me, in human terms anyways. My better half of the rainbow.
I got a few more summits to
climb
before I get to your level.
By the way, Papa said that there's only one summit. He defined it for us. My dad texts the whole show. Summit definition is top, apex, especially the highest point, peak, plateau in the world. Well, yes. So that's why when you get to one summit, you think it's the top until you look up and you see the cloud cover just disappeared and you see there's another summit. I think there's multiple summits.
I thought that, but I wasn't going to correct you, so I'm glad that you did.
Shut your face. Stop it. Anyways, so download the app, the Chakra Deck app. There's so much good information there. There's meditations, classes. If you want to, find the summit, not the peak. Find the summit, not the plateau.
We just climb different mountains, so there's multiple
Stop
summits.
it.
So I'm trying to help you out
I'm trying
here.
to self-promote right now.
Okay, sorry.
Anyways, okay, well, if you want to be a part of Johnny's world, make sure to register your kid into a school in his district, and he'll influence them in his beautiful way, being the king of his domain there in that high school setting. And then for myself, again, we love you so much here from KRMA, and so thrilled that you decide to join us every Friday at 11 a.m. It is getting cold here in Ohio, so
Fall is coming.
Winter is coming. So wrap up and stay connected. Send us anything you need or want for topics, episodes. If you want to hear more of Johnny, I'll try and get him to quit his career so he can come on Fridays.
Start a petition. Get some signatures.
Let's get on the
maybe she'll book
radio.
me more.
There we go. All right. With light and love, everybody, have a great rest of your Friday and a good weekend.
The Wellness Hour with Jenessee on KRMA Radio every Friday at 11 a.m.